take life and just leave. I don't know.
In a world of choices,
you have the right to remain silent.
Some choose.
Do you understand that?
The greater of two evils.
Well, I took an innocent man's life, so to live with that every day is rough.
Choice. It's what separates those who hit.
Why me? Why now? Why here? Mostly a whole bunch of whys.
From those who run.
I wonder if he wonders. I wonder if he thinks about the changes in our family when he resumes the life with his family.
For 1 year, 9 Wants to Know brought you the story in a way seldom, if ever, seen.
Nobody gives a Nobody cares.
Tonight, we take a look at where we've been and where we're going.
9 News has been an extraordinary advocate voice for the people of Colorado.
And if we all have a choice, we'd ask you to consider one in particular.
As my kids often say, we understand the hit, it's the run we don't understand. That's the problem.
Call it an epidemic if you want, but that word implies a sickness, a disease beyond our control. Those who run control their actions. No one forces them to leave. Yet every day in Colorado, drivers make that choice. Before we started this project with iNews at Rocky Mountain PBS, we knew the hit and run problem was a problem and not much more. Now we know the extent. More than one hit and run injury a day. More than 1/4 of all accidents in Denver involve someone leaving the scene. We know which road is the most dangerous, and we know how often someone goes to prison. 1 year into our Just Stop campaign, we've inspired change, a change in law and a change in mindset. Tonight, after dozens of interviews, months of research, and countless individual stories, we present one choice to reconsider. Just stop.
Denver 911, what's the address of the emergency?
Denver 911, where's your emergency?
Denver 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Consider it a road paved.
I just seen a car roll over behind us.
Paved with something other
I'm sure
than
you guys are getting a bunch of calls.
good intentions.
We're going to be looking for a possible run vehicle. It's going to be a white truck.
He was headed to Afghanistan. He had been offered an assignment that he couldn't tell us about. So we didn't know exactly what he was going to maybe do in March.
Jesse Pringle survived one tour in Iraq and was weeks away from a tour in Afghanistan when he died in a hospital in Colorado.
His ear was torn off in the accident, and in the emergency room they reattached it, which meant a lot to me. So when I saw him, there weren't obvious signs of trauma.
Trauma. From the physical to the psychological, trauma creeps into families like Priscilla's, leaving them with little more than pictures, and in some cases,
They handed me a pair of socks
a few items
and an earring.
the hospital managed to save.
That's what you got.
That's what was left of a life.
These are the faces of those killed in Colorado since 2011. 9 Wants to Know tracked each one. We also pinpointed the locations of each and every hit-and-run injury during that same time span. At Denver Health, we met a teen named Isaiah McKenzie who was hit while on his way to school.
I'm just happy to see him breathing. I love my little brother.
What we found in the Denver metro area is, on average, one hit-and-run injury every day.
85% is my new 100.
Tristan Rogers' leg now contains 14 screws and a 10-inch metal rod, the result of a run-in with a car when she was riding her bike.
I felt an impact from behind. That's the last thing that I remember.
State Patrol recreated the impact, but never recreated the moment she came to, an hour later, the moment she used her mouth to help her crawl out of a ditch.
Got lots of grass and mud stuck in my braces. Like I said, a little embarrassing, but you do what you have to do.
When State Patrol found the driver responsible,
can you tell me what happened back in August?
Joseph Douglas III implied something irresponsible.
I kind of assumed that it was a deer that I probably hit. And just continued about my night.
Our data showed in Denver, 28% of all accidents involve a driver fleeing the scene. The national average is closer to 10%. As for that driver who thought he hit a deer.
So is it possible that it was a person on a bike and not a deer?
I mean, it's possible. Like I said, I never saw what it was.
He received probation. In Adams County, of those convicted of hit and run involving serious injury, less than half went to prison. In Denver, we found it happened 34% of the time, and in Arapahoe County, it happened only 7% of the time. When we told the head prosecutor there of our data, he said a change will come.
If you get involved in an accident, you will stay at the scene, and if you don't, you can count on the fact that your liberty is going to be taken away from you.
Every time we get together and everything, we always feel that he's always around us.
Yet no story summed up our story, quite like Charlie Herrera's.
Somewhere up there, my grandfather's watching us and is glad that his family is here.
At the age of 85,
Today is going to be tough.
Charlie was the oldest victim on our list.
Yeah, he was coming back from the grocery store, never made it home.
One day last spring, his family met outside his Denver home.
We've always been close, but I mean, this has probably actually brought us a little closer.
For one more family reunion.
We will never forget what happened. It's very hard.
Your Honor, we have 5 members of the Herrera family who do want to address the court.
A father of 4, grandfather of 9, great-grandfather of 23.
This has become an epidemic in our communities.
And a husband to a woman who chose
I miss him terribly.
Chose to let a family member speak for her.
In the beginning, it was hard for me to sleep. I'd often get up and cry. My children would sit with me and cry and comfort me.
Every Christmas, she sat next to Charlie. Last year, they left his seat open for the first time.
I am very, very sorry from the bottom of my heart.
This year, LaToya Nelson's family will have to do the same.
The court imposes a sentence of 10 years in the Department of Corrections.
10 years. The proverbial end of the road. A road paved with nothing more than an unwillingness to stop.
We will never forget what happened. It's hard. It's very hard. He just hit a bike rider.
One crime, 4 witnesses, 4 different versions of what happened. Sometimes surveillance video sanitizes the scene just enough to make you believe that maybe that's not a woman. Maybe that's not her body being sent into the air, and maybe that's not a driver who's trying to flee the scene.
I thought I hit a tree. A tree was in front of me when I started to reverse.
Terrell Ferris never got too far, and police never did believe that story.
To sit there and tell us that you thought you hit a tree isn't very reasonable.
He eventually got 4 years.
Why a person would make a decision like that, I don't know.
Hit-and-run drivers in Colorado have killed 143 since 2008, 22 this year alone.
Then he was dead set on joining the service. He hadn't decided which one, but he felt like that was a good course for his life right now.
Our numbers show 75% of the time police find the driver. That still means in dozens of cases they don't.
Well, that's our version of the cold case board.
At Denver Police Traffic Operations,
it's just to remind us that the clock is ticking on a lot of our cases.
Lieutenant Robert Rock keeps a list of Denver's unsolved cases just outside his door. When we first met, the statute of limitations on fatal hit and runs was 5 years.
And we have 5 years.
After that,
it's over.
It is over.
Is that frustrating?
Very much so. My biggest fear at night is when I go home at the end of the day is that our time limit's going to expire and we're never going to get our bite at the apple again.
If somebody called you tomorrow and said, I know who killed your uncle, could anything happen?
Nothing can happen at this time.
Vernon Heisaw's uncle died at this intersection 6 years ago.
They know that, you know what, I've just committed a crime and I'll never be prosecuted for it.
When we brought the story to the state capitol, legislators on the last day of the session acted unanimously.
I hope the message is that we are taking this very seriously.
From now on, instead of 5 years, police will have double that, 10 years to solve hit and runs that kill.
9 News has been an extraordinary advocate voice for the people of Colorado.
I'm just saying, I don't remember hitting no lady.
More time to solve crimes at a time.
I do not remember that. What did you swerve for then? I don't remember all that, you know what I mean?
A time when not everyone is eager to tell you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but.
All right, it's 1:29 a.m. in the morning on January 31st. This interview is concluded.
Denver 911, what's the address of the emergency? The corner of Josephine and Colfax. Colfax and Josephine. A car just ran into a bunch of people on the sidewalk.
Of all of the people destined to hit and run,
Is anyone pinned?
very few can claim as fitting of a name
He hit a whole bus stop.
as Skipper, as in Mark Skipper.
The vehicle's missing a tire.
Shortly after the crash on Colfax, Skipper skipped out.
Sit down.
White t-shirt and jeans. You want me to go try to track him?
No, do not follow him. Just keep yourself safe.
In the end, he never got too far.
An hour and a half after the accident, he was laying on his girlfri's bed sleeping.
A judge gave him 6 years. Prosecutors credited the work of witnesses, which got us thinking. What happens to us when we see something that happens without warning? Warning. Okay, we are recording. This is not real. We know that. You now know that.
We're going to start probably around like 10:15.
But they...
Who does everybody work for?
They do not.
We're supposed to be aware of our surroundings at all times.
Cab drivers Ron, John, Rita, and Bale thought we only wanted to talk traffic.
I'm always prepared of what's going on around me, what the car in front of me is doing, the people next to me.
We were much more interested in sociology, particularly when it's combined with simple physics. With their backs turned, how would force and mass react with? Once our producer rolls the bike and gets out of the way.
Oh no.
Oh! React with something as common as pressure. Pressure.
He just hit the bike.
What happened?
He just hit a bike rider. And he's trying to run away. He's running.
Two of our witnesses ran toward the victim,
He hit the bike rider and he ran that way.
while the other two ran toward the suspect.
Oftentimes what we find is everyone runs to the victim and no one worries about the vehicle that leaves.
Okay, don't move her, don't move her.
Not wanting this to go on forever,
Guys, it's a drill.
we let them in on the secret.
All right, guys.
Our secret and her secret.
So she's okay.
Okay.
Introduce yourself.
And then we asked, what did you see?
Saw a gentleman run out, jump out of the car, so I decided to chase him.
No, I didn't see the driver at all.
Maybe 35, 40, I don't know.
Gray hoodie, and then it looks like khaki.
The car was white with a black door.
No, it was the car was too far from where we were standing to be able to get the license plate.
What you saw in a few seconds is all that we have to go on.
Lieutenant Robert Rock tells us witnesses frequently witness
It's hard to say.
different things.
One person might see the driver, one might see the car, one might see the victim.
Here's his advice in order of importance. License plate, that's huge. Vehicle description.
And whether that's a four-door or it's an SUV, we need that.
Color.
Depending on the lighting, you may not always know what color it is.
Who's in the car? Any passengers? Long hair, short? And finally, where did the car go? Did it turn left, right?
You're trying to watch 10 million things at the same time. You're trying to watch a person on the street. You're trying to watch who's running away.
Just know something, anything might help. Because the next time this happens, chances are the driver won't be Denver Crime Stoppers member Larry Stevenson.
Yeah, good one, Larry.
Founder of the statewide Medina Alert.
I tried to chase
Oh, you was going to grip me, huh?
Yeah.
Yes, simple physics tells you an object in motion tends to stay in motion. Unfortunately, human nature also tells you driver at rest
And he's trying to run away. He's running.
doesn't always tend to stay at rest.
You just don't know who it's going to be. And it really don't matter because society wants you to do the right thing.
Nobody gives a Nobody cares.
A 19-year-old's final minute captured next to Denver's most dangerous road.
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
He was just the best friggin' guy, man.
A really friendly, outgoing, young adult.
He was just a bright, shining star from the very beginning.
Reed Huffman spent the last minute of his life unaware
Yes, I'm really, really mad.
Unaware of the fact that the rest of his life would be measured in seconds.
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
Halfway across Federal, he leaned into a southbound lane. The first hit.
Nausea. Just a feeling of, sick to my stomach.
The driver of that car stopped, tried to help, and then jumped out of the way shortly before a northbound car ensured Reed's fate. The second hit.
He always had the best friggin' jokes. You could tell him anything.
Friends like Joshua Shepard knew Reed through the public service group AmeriCorps.
You can't help but get close to people, man.
AmeriCorps' campus sits on the western side of Federal Boulevard.
You never want to be near somewhere where someone dies. Yep.
Connie Griffith watched Reed die here and compared the scene in front of her apartment to a never-ending and dangerous game of chance.
They need some kind of traffic control so they can push a button and get across the street safe.
No other road in Denver, according to our data, has experienced more hit and runs than Federal Boulevard. 306 this year alone. Most were minor, but our count shows 32 injuries, making it the most dangerous road for hit and runs in the city. No need to tell that to the family of an 11-year-old who tried to cross Federal near Colfax in February.
My nephew got hit by a car and they left him there. And I just don't know why. You could just hurt somebody and leave them.
11-year-old Mikey Espinoza met friends that night, went to a nearby Denny's, and crossed in a spot without a crosswalk.
It's gonna hurt us forever.
Who does this? Who hits a kid and leaves the scene?
A monster.
The driver, a 21-year-old, hit 60 miles an hour while trying to race another car, right before his car hit Mikey. Months later, Oswaldo Lopez received 6 years in prison. In April,
so this has become a very dangerous area.
Denver police returned to the spot of the death of AmeriCorps member Reed Huffman.
We have a lot of kids that have to get across the street.
Our data found 60% of all people who died in hit and runs were pedestrians.
And it's a recipe for danger.
And half of those pedestrians were at least partially to blame for their own deaths.
It's a very important message.
Meaning, had the driver stopped, he or she might not have even received a traffic ticket. It's why, on this day,
$95 for crossing the street. You see that?
Denver police wrote at least a dozen jaywalking tickets.
We grown, man. We know how to cross the street.
Yet, hours after the police operation, we returned and saw it happening all over again. Which brought us back to what Joshua Shepard, Reed Huffman's friend, told us on our very first day on Federal.
If there had been a crosswalk here, he wouldn't have died.
No crosswalk, no way to cross within a half mile of the most dangerous road in the city, a road that sits next to a campus that educates hundreds. A CDOT spokesperson says more studies are needed, and any solution remains months away.
Nobody gives a Nobody cares.
2 months ago, another AmeriCorps member died in roughly this same spot. Not a hit and run, but a death nonetheless.
He came here to, as we like to say, to get things done.
Shortly after, Reed Huffman's family started a petition begging the state to speed things up.
It doesn't always feel real. You think that you're just going to see them.
More than 2,200 have signed on so far.
Just a crosswalk with a stop sign. He wouldn't have died.
Taking the life of an innocent person, that hurts.
The thin line between incarceration and inspiration.
The first reaction was to stop. There wasn't to do anything else but to stop.
To flee or not to flee? Far too often, that is the question.
He was funny. He was mischievous. He was loud. He was boisterous.
Whoever hit Ray Cabri while Cabri was on his motorcycle fled shortly thereafter.
Who does that?
Ray's wife calls the driver a coward.
A heartless person. A heartless person. Someone that doesn't care about anybody else in this world except themselves.
Police told Ray's family the driver almost certainly fled to Mexico.
You take a life and just leave. I don't know.
Our review of every death in Colorado since 2008 shows intoxication remains the #1 reason why people flee, followed by lack of valid license, and more than a few drivers told police they were simply too scared to stick around.
Why'd you run?
The anxiety. Yeah, everything happens so fast.
In a place where even the contrite are questionable, sincerity remains about as rare as a viable escape route through barbed wire.
Well, I took an innocent man's life, so.
Yet Michael Benton insists he's sorry.
I don't feel that I'll never be able to make up for what I did. And I have to live with that.
The day before Valentine's Day 2012, Benton, while on probation, hit a parked car. That parked car moved and crushed a plumber who was doing nothing more than getting supplies out of the back of his car.
Believe it, if I could take it all back, I would.
Benton, a husband and father of 3, ended up killing Mark Michelle, a husband and father of 3.
Taking the life of an innocent person. That hurts.
Eventually, he turned himself in, and eventually, a judge sent him here.
It hurts.
Not everyone still hurts, however.
After a man got hit trying to cross the interstate.
I was driving to the store, so what was on my mind was cat food.
Why it happened earlier this year, he cannot say.
Why me? Why now? Why here? You know, mostly a whole bunch of whys.
When Kenton Schoschberger hit a homeless man trying to cross I-25.
In this circumstance, there was nothing to react to. It was just boom.
He too faced those 2 options.
And there was the blood stain almost right in front of my face, and there was glass all over me.
Yet the man diagnosed with Asperger's not that long ago.
Logical to a fault at times.
Says logic told him not to flee.
You could have.
No.
But you killed somebody.
And it shocked the hell out of me.
In the end,
Boom, that fast, like that.
Mike's choice to leave.
What I did hurt a lot of people.
Led to a 16-year prison sentence.
You gotta own up for your actions, you got to.
While Kenton's choice not to led to nothing more.
Did you get a traffic ticket?
Nope.
Nothing.
Nothing at all. They gave me a ride home even.
Nothing more than a ride home in a police car.
The first reaction was to stop. It wasn't to do anything else but to stop.
One question, only 2 possible answers. Doesn't get any more difficult than that.
If it's accidental, why wouldn't you come forward and say, hey, look, I made a mistake, I did this.
By our count, Denver this year has already seen 446 hit-and-run injuries through mid-December. The state has also seen 22 deaths. Both represent a jump from last year. iNews and 9 Wants to Know now challenge you to continue this conversation online. So we hope you'll take a look at what we believe to be one of the largest databases of hit-and-runs in the country. Each and every hit-and-run in Denver this year can be found on our website. Just go to 9news.com and look for the Just Stop tab. And if you'd like to help, we'd urge you to use our hashtag, justStopCO, the next time you hear of a hit and run. We all have a choice in the matter. Thanks for joining us. For 9 Wants to Know, I'm Chris Vanderveen. Stay safe out there. One of the things we really wanted to be able to do with Just Stop was to move the story beyond a television story. We wanted you to learn the information that we've learned about hit and runs, how often they happen, where they happen, and who are the victims.
What's the address of the emergency?
Yes, we've told you the basics. 1 hit and run injury a day in Denver. Which street is the most dangerous? But there's so much more to tell. So head to our website, look for the justStopCO tab on the left side of the screen. The first thing you'll see is a map. On that map, you'll be able to see the location of every fatal hit and run in Colorado. And here's the thing. If it's unsolved, like, let's say, the story of Zame Khan and Azet Khan, you can see that it remains unsolved. And perhaps more importantly, there's a phone number to call if you have any information on the case. Jason Grimmer, killed on New Year's Eve a few years ago. Same thing. Next, you'll see all of the hit-and-run injuries in Lakewood, Denver, and Aurora. Head there and you can find the location of every hit-and-run involving injuries since 2011. You can see if a street near you has had a series of problems. After that, you'll find all of the stories we've done, and we've done dozens on this subject since the first of the year. We'll plug the link to the special we just completed as well. Here's something we're very proud of. Denver averages more than 5,000 hit and runs every year. Most are minor fender benders, but thanks to the work of our data journalist and this map, you'll be able to dig deeper. Each one of the 5,000 plus hit and runs that have occurred this year are now pinpointed in this map. Again, this is an opportunity for you to see if your neighborhood is having a problem, or maybe an intersection you use a lot. Is it having problems? You can also learn more about the statewide Medina Alert, how you can sign up for the app we've helped create to alert you if police are trying to find a hit-and-run driver in your area. One last thing, if you've been a victim of a hit-and-run and you'd like to tell us your story, there is a form at the bottom of the webpage you can fill out. Gotta tell you, many of our stories from this year's Just Stop project have come from people just like you willing to tell us your story. We said at the beginning of the year we were going to cover hit and runs in a way never before seen. We feel a year later we've been able to meet that goal. So please head to our website and take advantage of what we believe to be one of the largest databases on hit and run information in the country. Chris Vanderveen, 9 News.
On average, 17 times a day, someone in a car is involved in a hit and run in Denver. That comes straight from data compiled in a joint investigation between 9 Wants to Know and iNews at Rocky Mountain PBS. The numbers also tell us the 4 spots that have seen the most hit and runs here: I-25 and 6th, I-70 in Quebec, I-25 in Alameda, and I-25 and 20th Street. The deeper 9 News investigative reporter Chris Vanderveen went into the study, the more he found the human toll is considerably more disturbing than any number or address.
Hello, 911, where's your emergency?
Few things compel the culpable to act
I need number P emergency.
more than good old-fashioned guilt.
Okay, is your emergency in Denver?
Well, I was involved in a hit and run last night.
Hours after Mark DeLeon hit a man with his car, he called 911.
So that was a hit and run with your vehicle?
Correct.
And turned himself in.
Just stay on the phone with me here for a moment, okay?
Guilt.
Take a deep breath.
For every person it compels to act, there are countless others who feel compelled to control it.
You need some water?
What else could explain the fact that recently someone hit 14-year-old Isaiah McKenzie while he was walking to school?
I'm just happy to see him breathing.
Leaving his brother a witness to explain why doctors had to wire Isaiah's jaw shut.
It stopped, but it kept going. Like, it didn't roll down his windows or anything. It stopped and it kept going.
Kept going.
You don't hit a dog and hit and run, let alone a human being.
Between 2011 and 2013, our investigation with iNews found on 1,300 occasions, someone injured someone else and kept going in Lakewood, Denver, and Aurora. 1,300 hit and runs involving injury, or more than one a day.
We have to be better than that.
One a day.
He was headed to Afghanistan.
Jesse Pringle's day was August 19th, 2012.
So they handed me a pair of socks and an earring that had been in the ear.
That's what you got.
That's what I got. That's what was left of a life.
To this day, his adoptive mother, Priscilla Ingebrigtsen, still feels guilt for a conversation with a friend and a decision she knew in her heart was the correct one.
I talked to her and I said, I know the right thing to do. And she just gave me the courage. She said, if you know the right thing to do, then go do it.
7 days after a car crushed him, life support stopped. One of 34 people in Colorado in 2012 to die as a result of a driver who never felt enough guilt to stop.
We understand the hit. It's the run we don't understand. That's the problem.
34 deaths in 2012, 18 in 2011, 12 in 2010. Too many, and clearly not enough guilt.
What color car were you driving, Mark?
It's gray.
Not enough guilt to go around.
I want acknowledgement. I want to sit face to face and say, this is how I am. Who are you and how has it been for you? That would give me peace of mind.
We're on the front end of a project that will take us well into the rest of the year working on hit and runs. In 2012, Colorado ranked in the top 10 per capita in the U.S. when it came to fatal hit and runs. As Priscilla Ingebrigtsen told us, we can do better. One thing we can all do, start using the hashtag #JustStop when you come across a hit and run and you're online on either Twitter or Facebook. And by all means, let us know if there's a hit and run we need to cover.
Something that we've talked an awful lot about over the last year, we will talk about more. You spoke about the moral aspect of it, the guilt that compels people to stop. What about the legal compulsion here?
The state legislature changed the law a few years ago to disincentivize people from running from the scene. Interesting to note that in all the data that we've compiled so far, Kyle, it doesn't appear as if it's having an impact. There's still more years to come, but we'll see what happens.
See if the public component of shame can change the equation, if this just becomes something that people can't do.
Something's got to work.
All right, Chris, thank you.
You bet.
10 years in prison sent a hit-and-run driver to the floor this afternoon inside a Denver courtroom. LaToya Nelson collapsed in front of friends and family. Last year, she ran a red light and collided with a car at 13th and Calumet. She ran away from the scene on foot. 9 Watch Snow reporter Chris Vanderveen was in the courtroom today, but he begins our lead story a few blocks away.
We had a lot of memories here, a lot of big memories. How you doing?
Charlie Herrera's modest house on North Mariposa never could hold.
How you doing, Tony?
Hold his entire family. John, his son, will tell you it didn't matter.
He would go from one seat to another, talk to everybody, see how everybody was doing.
Every holiday, every birthday, Charlie's family came here.
He was the man, you know, in our hearts.
Family.
Feels like it still happens, you know, just happened last week or yesterday.
Charlie's family chose to start here on today of all days.
You know, every time we get together and everything, we always feel that he's always around us.
11 months ago and 6 blocks away.
Breaking news, another hit-and-run death.
Charlie Herrera's family lost its patriarch.
The driver had just run a red light.
To the actions of a woman who never bothered to see if Charlie was okay.
She ditched her car at that intersection and ran.
11 months later,
Today is going to be tough.
Charlie's family came to court one last time.
Oh, we've always been close, but I mean, this has probably actually brought us a little closer.
4 children, 9 grandchildren.
He was small in stature, but big in heart. He touched many lives and will be greatly missed.
More than 20 great-grandchildren.
We know when God called you, you had to go. But we want you to know, Grandpa, we miss you and love you so.
Dressed in Broncos orange in honor of Charlie's favorite team, they sat and watched as the woman responsible told them she made a horrible mistake.
I am very, very sorry from the bottom of my heart.
LaToya Nelson pleaded guilty to leaving the scene of a fatal accident not long ago. In the audience, Charlie's wife of 63 years who chose to let a grandson
I miss him terribly.
Tell her story.
In the beginning, it was hard for me to sleep. I'd often get up and cry. My children would sit with me and cry and comfort me.
Mary Herrera was always with Charlie. Last Christmas, they left his seat empty. Next Christmas, LaToya Nelson's family.
The court imposes a sentence of 10 years in the Department of Corrections.
They will have to do the same. Nelson collapsed after receiving 10 years, the most she faced. Family.
It's remembered all the time.
Maybe it was to see this. But Charlie's family insists today they came together one last time for Charlie.
He's probably looking down from heaven and saying, the family's here. You know, we're all together again.
Chris Vanderveen, 9 News.
Prosecutors say Nelson ran because just minutes prior, they believe she'd been selling marijuana in a nearby Burger King parking lot. Now's a good time to remind you about our Just Stop campaign to bring more awareness to hit-and-run crashes. Online, we ask that you use the hashtag #JustStop when talking about these crashes. We're hoping to get more people talking about the issue as well as possible solutions.
There's an average of 1 injury from a hit and run every day in the Denver area. That's what we learned in a joint investigation with iNews, the investigative wing of PBS in Colorado. Over at 9news.com, you can watch our reporting from the past week on what some say has turned into an epidemic of hit and runs. Right now, police are investigating a hit and run that has killed a juvenile boy in Denver tonight. It happened within the last hour near Colfax and Federal. And 9 News reporter Lindsay Watts is live there with new details on a possible arrest. Lindsay, what can you tell us?
Eric, we learned from police just minutes ago that the man accused of hitting and killing a child and then driving off was arrested at his home in Aurora. We still do not know that suspect's name. Now, the hit and run happened right around 8 o'clock tonight. Police say an 11-year-old Hispanic boy was crossing Federal near Colfax when he was struck. The boy's family members were here when we arrived, obviously heartbroken. A woman collapsed in the street, screaming and crying. Something just terrible to see and difficult for police as well.
It doesn't matter what the situation is. If you hit someone, you need to stop. That's the bottom line to this. That's whether it's dark or not, stop. If the kids are crossing the wrong place, okay, that's one thing, but you still need to stop and offer aid.
And I prayed that you would come and turn yourself in, but you didn't. They had to find you.
The family of an 11-year-old boy killed in the city's latest hit and run calls it an immeasurable loss. Michael Espinoza, called Mikey, was a 5th grader. Last night he was hit by a car going north on Federal near Colfax. Police say the license plate that fell off the car helped them find their suspect. He's 21 and now faces, among other things, a vehicular homicide charge. 9 Wants to Know investigator Chris Vanderveen helped launch our Just Stop campaign last week to bring more attention to hit and runs. And Chris, this area has seen more than its share.
Adele, it has. And our joint investigation with iNews revealed the location of more than 1,000 hit-and-run accidents involving injury between the years of 2011 and 2013. What it also found is that this particular location between Colfax and Federal has seen 9 hit-and-runs during that same time span involving injury. There's a difference in what happened last night. First of all, it involved a fatality. The other, clearly, is involved an 11-year-old boy.
There are few things more traumatic in life than an 8 p.m. phone call telling you need to come here right away. Someone you know is dead.
Why would you leave a baby in the street bleeding?
Gwen Espinoza is the woman right there. She is the aunt of the boy who died at Federal in Colfax. She had to help identify the boy the family called Mikey.
That little boy was everything to us. He was such a good, caring, loving child. If he seen somebody walking that needed help, he'd go help them. I mean, anything that you wanted, he would do.
One day later, Gwen, dressed as she was last night, still can't believe Mikey Espinoza is gone. Still can't believe her son, Mikey's 14-year-old cousin, had to watch him die. The car just missed him.
And I just don't know why you could just hurt somebody and leave them, knowing that you hurt somebody.
Police say this man, Oswaldo Lopez, was the one responsible. An hour after the hit and run, police arrested him in Aurora. He faces, among other things, a vehicular homicide charge. Mikey's sister is 15.
I'm hurt and lost. I don't understand, like how my auntie was saying, how somebody can do this and just leave them there.
The boys had spent part of their night at a nearby Denny's. It's just a block from where the car hit Mikey. Staff there saw the aftermath. It was a brutal crime, one this family will carry with them forever.
He was so loving and he would do anything for you. I just don't understand. Why would you just leave?
Suspect is expected to make that initial court appearance in a Denver County courtroom tomorrow morning. The campaign itself is ongoing between iNews and 9 News, and one of those things that you may have noticed us doing already online is using this, the hashtag JustStop. It's something that you can do when you hear of or when you see a hit and run accident. Go ahead and use that online. It's going to help spread the word. It is so critical in investigations like this. Adele?
Now, that scene at Colfax and Federal is just a few blocks from another hit and run at 10th Avenue and Knox. It's where a motorcycle rider was seriously hurt earlier tonight. Police are looking for a dark, early 90s Chevy Blazer in that incident. Now, we're posting all this vehicle information on 9news.com.
Here in Denver, police have a suspect in custody now in connection with a hit and run on Colorado at East Iowa this morning. Police located the driver's Jeep Wrangler around 7:30, and as you can see, there's extensive damage to the front end, and it was found with this tarp on top. One person was injured in the crash. The victim was driving a Ford Explorer when the Jeep just kept on going on Iowa after hitting him. The victim was taken to the hospital with a possible fracture.
6:33, new overnight. 3 people are recovering after a possible hit and run. One is a small child. The group was walking when a car hit them. The crash happened in southwest Denver on Morrison Road near South Stewart Street. Investigators are searching for a Jeep that was last seen outbound on Morrison. Officers say they have some conflicting information on the description of the car that left the scene. They hope to learn more when they get the chance to talk to the adult victims.
It is a story we tell too often, a group of people gathering together to remember someone who died in a hit and run. This group gathered to remember Derek Dahl. Co-workers say he was hit in a hit and run this morning in Aurora. He worked as a bartender at the Piper Inn. Police have not officially identified the victim as Dahl. His friends and co-workers say it was him on a motorcycle this morning who laid the bike down to avoid a crash with a truck. That truck left. Another truck ran over him and also took off. Aurora police found both drivers later in the morning.
Just a good guy, just a really good guy. Had so much going for him. He was very excited to do so many things in his life, and it just got taken away just like that.
Police say a hit and run and a police chase led to a crash on the steps of the Colorado Supreme Court building today. Investigators say a car hit a pedestrian on the area campus and then drove off. A campus police officer chased the car to 14th and Broadway, where the driver ran a red light and was T-boned. Police say 2 people were taken into custody. Both were hurt. The pedestrian and the other driver had minor injuries.
A hit and run this evening at 14th and Quebec in Denver sent a woman to the hospital. The suspect ran off, was caught shortly after by police. 9 News reporter Whitney Wild joins us from the intersection where all this happened. Whitney.
Well, Kyle, even though this accident cleared hours ago, if you come out here, you can still see debris at 14th and Quebec. We'll give you a look at what drivers see when they roll through here. Police are staying tight-lipped about this crash, saying only that the suspect has been arrested. It all happened just after 4 p.m. 9 News spoke with the driver of the car which was hit. She says the suspect fled on foot seconds after hitting her car and that several witnesses saw it happen. She adds that the woman who was sent to the hospital was her passenger, Kyle. Here's how she described the moments leading up to the crash between the 2 sedans.
She was coming northbound and I was going southbound, so I saw her like swerve out and then just like her car was like on top of my car. There wasn't anything I could do about it. I tried to slam on my brakes to stop, but it was just too late. I couldn't do anything to keep it from happening.
Denver's 8th fatal hit and run of the year has left a family begging for the public's help in finding the driver who is responsible. It happened last night in an alleyway near 33rd and Milwaukee in North Denver. 9 Wants to Know reporter Chris Vanderveen has spearheaded our Just Stop campaign all year long. And Chris, they have at least a little bit of information to go on in this one.
Mark, there is some good news. They have a decent car description, gray or silver F-150 with a stripe on the side. This is now, as you said, the 8th fatal hit and run of the year in Denver and the 22nd in the state so far this year. That puts us ahead of last year by 4. 53-year-old Nadine Chavez was likely, according to her family, throwing away some trash in the alleyway when she was hit by that truck. Friends and family say what she lacked in finances, she more than made up in generosity. Of the 22 fatal hit and runs this year in Colorado, only 4 remain unsolved, including last night's. Police issued a Medina alert last night to alert cab companies as well as the public about the car description, which came out within about an hour of the actual hit and run. That's the good news. A lot of eyes on the lookout for this truck. The family tells us what happened last night was beyond wrong and criminal. For them, this is unconscionable.
Nobody deserves to be run down and killed and just left there to die. Like, you know, a piece of roadkill, like if they hit a deer. It's just not right.
Coincidentally, we're in the process of finishing up a massive database on all area hit and runs resulting in injury. There's a list of over 1,000 that we've accumulated so far. As we reported earlier this year, at least a person a day is injured by a hit and run driver in the metro area.
Whoever was the driver in a very high-profile hit and run in Denver will almost certainly go unpunished, thanks to, of all things, Colorado law. The surprising revelation came to us during our work with PBS-based iNews on the ramifications of hit and runs in general.
9 Wants to Know investigative reporter Chris Vanderveen has more on a story that has the state's largest police department operating under a constant deadline.
Upside down.
Innocent victim. They're struck and killed.
Long as it's been said, time waits for no one.
Charges ran.
Fatal control.
It moves, it advances.
Hit him and
It
ran.
failed to stop without any acknowledgement of what it leaves in its wake.
His ear was torn off in the accident, and in the emergency room they reattached it, which meant a lot to me. So when I saw him, there weren't obvious signs of trauma.
Priscilla Ingebrigtsen's adopted son was a few weeks away from a deployment into Afghanistan when, much like time, a driver kept going.
We know that he stopped for a second and then pretty clearly made a decision to flee, and people saw him flee.
One of 34 people in Colorado to die as a result of hit and run in 2012.
Well, that's our version of the cold case board.
In Denver, Lieutenant Robert Rock needs not a watch to convince him of the passage of time.
It's just to remind us that the clock is ticking on a lot of our cases. We try to keep these cases on the forefront of our mind.
Unsolved fatals, and each one has what amounts to a shelf life. In Colorado, the statute of limitations on a fatal hit and run is 5 years. Better than a hit and run involving serious injury. There, it's just 3 years.
Breaking news.
Police are looking for this driver.
3 years. No one needs to tell the Denver Police Department how much time has passed since someone hit a mother as she crossed the street in Denver's Stapleton neighborhood.
Victim is in critical condition.
We're told the baby did not make it.
Whoever hit a pregnant Lori Gorham Sherlock, whoever caused her to lose her son, did so 3 years and 2 months ago.
It is over.
Is that frustrating?
Very much so. We might be able to do something, but the chances are very little. Unfortunately, the statute of limitations has run out on that case.
And when you talk about running down a human being, it's just incredible that people would leave after doing that.
Denver Detective Trist Turney feels the pressure of that board.
Oh, absolutely. Every day. My name's up there a couple times.
One case involves a man by the name of Ramon Diaz-Lozano, killed when he tried to cross Federal near Kentucky.
I'm not done. No. I need somebody who can say, so-and-so was driving that car because they told me, or I was with them. I need somebody to come forward.
Thankfully, she says she has some more time
to find who's responsible.
Be accountable.
But here they also know eventually time catches up to all of us.
And do the right thing.
If only the law could do the same.
My biggest fear at night is when I go home at the end of the day is that our time limit's going to expire and we're never going to get our bite at the apple again.
Chris Vanderveen, 9 News.
Chris will continue his work on hit and runs throughout the year. And one thing that you can do if you want to help is start using the hashtag #JustStop on social media.
We're going to use it as we cover hit and runs, and we're hoping you will too when you spread the word online. We'll be right back.
For months now, we have devoted a lot of coverage here to hit and runs in our Just Stop campaign with iNews at Rocky Mountain PBS. That conversation helped convince the legislature to pass a bill just yesterday to double the statute of limitations for fatal hit and runs. The bill is awaiting the governor's signature. Tonight, we asked 9 Wants to Know investigator Chris Vanderveen to take a closer look at some astounding numbers that continue to result in broken bodies and broken hearts.
Denver 911, your emergency.
Call it a crisis of conscience to flee or not to flee.
The guy's down. He may be seriously injured.
In Denver, our numbers show more than 1 in 4 of all accidents, from fender benders to fatals, involve drivers who flee. The national average is closer to 1 in 10.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys are getting a bunch of calls.
July 30th, 2013.
Car accident right in front of the car just ran into a bunch of people.
Mark Skipper slams a Saab into a bus stop. The crash seriously injures one.
The vehicle's missing a tire. Yep, he ran out of the car. He just took a left-hand turn.
An hour and a half after the accident, he was laying on his girlfriend's bed sleeping, while everyone else in the Denver Police Department was looking for a person who was driving the Saab.
Last week, the 9-time felon received 6 years. Yet incarceration isn't always inevitable.
Can you tell me what happened back in August?
looked down at my stereo for probably about 5 seconds, felt impact on my car.
Colorado State Trooper Trent Waters.
Did you see any blood or hair or anything in the damage area?
Wants to know.
No, I did not.
What Joseph Douglas knows about a 2011 hit and run.
I assumed that it was a deer that I probably hit, and just continued about my night.
Turns out he didn't hit a deer.
I felt an impact from behind. That's the last thing that I remember.
He hit Hinckley High School athletic director
Go to prom with you?
Tristan Rogers. Her left ankle still contains the 14 screws to prove it.
I'm always in discomfort. It's always stiff. It's always swollen. 85% is my new 100.
State Patrol made this animation to show what happened.
I'm still here. A lot of people can't say that they're still here.
I never saw what it was.
Last year, a judge gave Douglas probation, not unusual in Arapahoe County, where we found only 7% of hit and runs involving serious injury led to a prison sentence. In Denver, we found it happened 34% of the time. In Adams, 44%. So we went to Arapahoe County.
It does concern me.
Relatively new Arapahoe County DA George Brockler told us this is a problem his office will address.
If you get involved in an accident, you will stay at the scene. And if you don't, you can count on the fact that your liberty is going to be taken away from you.
Tough talk at a time when we've tracked and detailed not just hundreds of injuries, but also the deaths of 132 people since 2008, 132 lives, 132 faces.
I lost the center of my world.
Ray Cabri.
He was the rock in our family.
Was 57.
Everybody looked up to him.
One of 34 to die in 2012, the worst year we studied. To date, police have yet to make an arrest in this case.
To leave him lay in the dirt. To me, is a life sentence that he should have to pay.
Cabri was on a motorcycle. Most of the deaths involved people on their own 2 feet.
I swear I remember hitting something. I don't remember hitting a person.
Pedestrians make up 55% of all deaths since 2008. Pedestrians like Kathy Hill Young, struck and killed by a van in Denver. A surveillance camera shows people running toward her as the van speeds away.
I thought I hit a tree. A tree was in front of me when I stopped to reverse.
Carol Ferries received 4 years.
Denver 911. Denver 911.
And while 2013 saw a dip in numbers, 2014 is once again seeing a spike. 1/3 of the year down, and we've seen 11 deaths. An ongoing crisis of conscience. Too much crisis and not enough conscience.
I don't, for the life of me, understand how you could impact a human's life and drive away from that, not knowing what you've done to somebody.
Throughout all of this, we've heard from a lot of people who really wanted to know if pedestrians shared at least some responsibility here. Our analysis with iNews shows that more than half of pedestrians hit in a hit and run were at least partially or significantly to blame. We've tracked 36 cases where had the driver stopped, they might not have even received a traffic ticket.
So pedestrians are one share of this very complex problem, alcohol another part.
Alcohol, distracted driving, a lot of things are at play here.
All right, Chris, thank you.
A new Colorado law will give police more time to investigate hit-and-run cases when someone is killed. As 9 News political reporter Brandon Ritteman explains, police were concerned about the 5-year statute of limitations to bring charges.
9 Wants to Know put a spotlight on hit and runs.
He just hit the bike.
Why it's hard to get good leads from witnesses, the large number of cases, and the ticking clock police are up against trying to solve them.
Well, that's our version of the cold case board.
The fatal cases on this whiteboard have to be solved in 5 years, or the culprits can never be brought to trial. Starting this summer, police will get twice as long on new cases.
Those names stay on the whiteboard that much longer, another 5 years, which is really important.
Let's take this good idea and make it into a better law.
Governor John Hickenlooper signed the bill at the Capitol, surrounded by supporters who frankly would have liked the bill to go further.
Initially, the hope was to have it unlimited, no statute of limitations for fatal hit and runs, but we'll take what we can get to start out with.
But what people need to know is that now there's even a longer period of time to look for you if you kill somebody and flee. So just stay there. It's not going to be as bad as you think it's going to be.
In other words, just stop. It's the law, and it just got that much tougher. Brandon Rittiman, 9 News.
The new law takes effect July 1st and only applies to cases after that. And next year, supporters hope to pass a similar bill aimed at hit-and-run cases with injuries, not just fatalities.
Drivers in Colorado who flee after killing someone will have to look over their shoulders for quite a bit longer due to a piece of legislation that went into effect today. The measure, brought forward after a series of 9 Wants to Know reports, doubles what is known as the statute of limitations for deadly hit and runs. Investigative reporter Chris Vanderveen brings us what's come to symbolize the problem in the latest report in our Just Stop campaign.
At Denver's traffic operations,
Unfinished work, unfinished business.
it's as unavoidable as it is understated.
That board is always there.
Here, the dry erase board might as well be a clock.
There's your name. Attached to that name is a victim, a location, a date, and a clock that's running out.
Sergeant Mike Farr knows prior to today, the deadline to solve a fatal hit and run was 5 years. Starting today, any new addition to this list will automatically receive a wider window.
Any hit and run involving a fatal injury now extends my statute of limitations to 10 years. I now have a full decade to find the perpetrator of that crime.
In a city where nearly 1/3 of all people involved in accidents leave the scene, that's not insignificant.
It's from this day forward,
says Larry Stevenson with Metro Denver Crime Stoppers. He likens it to a new tool in the toolbox.
It's sort of like when you're fixing something around the house. You look for that flathead, but it's not the right size and you can't find the right size. They always need that extra tool.
Yet when the governor signed the extension into law, the bill talked only of fatal hit and runs. It did not address those involving serious injury. There, the legal timeline remains 3 years. 3 years.
That has to be a topic of conversation, and we're going to take that back to the table, most definitely.
Back at DPD, the dry erase board has run out of room. Next unsolved fatal will have to go on a new one. At least then they say they'll have more time to keep it up. Again, this will not impact hit and runs that occurred before today, only those that happen from here on out. There are some people who wanted to eliminate the statute of limitations altogether for fatal hit and runs. That did not happen. Even still, 10 years puts Colorado near the top of the list when it comes to toughest states for fatal hit and runs. Kim?
Which is encouraging, you would hope. I don't know, do investigators feel like that extra time means somebody might come forward, or
they realize that the science isn't exactly going to be able to help them, but what they hope for certainly is that somebody will call, somebody will give them a tip, maybe 7, 8 years down the line. They say that is what's critical in solving a lot of these hit and runs. For a year or two, they'll rely on science. After that, they really have to rely on word of mouth.
And when you think about it, it could be like the girlfriend or the boyfriend that knew something and stayed silent. And then
it does happen. And from here on out, instead of it being 5 years, they're going to have 10 years.
Along a busy street in Wheat Ridge, you might never notice what's left. You might never realize what happened here fewer than 24 hours ago.
It's just more disturbing than anything that something like this can happen.
But it just takes a glance, a moment, to see how much will be left behind. At 8:45 last night, police say Alton Kirkland was speeding down Kipling when he caused a horrific 3-car crash that took 18-year-old Jordan Sprouse's life.
He was at that point as a teenager where you try to decide who you are.
For those closest to him, it's an indescribable loss. As family and friends gather to remember and reflect, the emotions are raw, the pain hard to manage. Jordan's dad, Jamie, calls him the kindest boy you would ever meet.
Had a bigger heart than some people would know because he was pretty quiet.
In death, he says there's just one lifeline.
You need forgiveness to go on in life, that's for sure. I taught my son that.
Tonight, a quiet boy's impact speaks volumes.
If he had any faults, he wore his heart on his sleeve, and I don't think that's a fault at all.
You can't help but notice that. Police say that Kirkland will likely face vehicular homicide charges as well as domestic violence charges and felony menacing. Back to you guys.
Whitney, you see all the people there and you see how many people are affected by one hit and run.
Exactly. We're hoping to end this epidemic by continuing to report on all the lives that are lost.
All right, Whitney Wild in Wheat Ridge. Thanks, Whitney.
A 19-year-old AmeriCorps member, originally from North Carolina, never intended to be a statistic when he walked across Federal Boulevard Saturday night, but it's how he became the latest hit-and-run death in the metro area. 9 Wants to Know reporter Chris Vanderveen is leading our Just Stop campaign. And Chris, today the judge set a $50,000 bond for this teenage driver.
Kyle, that's customary in a case like this. The suspect, he's 18 years old. Police believe he was drunk when he hit Reed Huffman as Huffman was trying to walk across Federal Boulevard a little before 11 on Saturday night. We went to that area today to get a better idea of a problem that remains visible at any hour of the day.
The daily dash and dart
24 hours a day
reminds Connie Griffith
I see him crossing the street here all the time.
Of an unfair game of chicken.
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. They need to put some crosswalks here.
Saturday night, her point was proven yet again.
Well, you can see the blood spot where he got hit the first time.
When a 19-year-old named Reed Huffman was hit not once, but twice as he tried to cross the busy street.
He was just the best friggin' guy, man.
Joshua Shepard worked with Huffman in the AmeriCorps program, saw him just a few days ago.
Came up, gave me a hug. He always had the best friggin' jokes. You could tell him anything.
AmeriCorps' Denver campus sits right next to Federal.
Everybody heard about it, man.
Here's the problem. We're at Federal in Dartmouth where there is a crosswalk, but you got to go all the way over that way, about a half a mile to Yale in Dartmouth before you get to the next crosswalk. A half a mile distance where there are no crosswalk, yet people cross anyways.
Denver police believe this 18-year-old, Eliu Jimenez, never did stop once they say he hit Huffman. Didn't matter, he was the second one to do so. The first driver stopped. Jimenez, they say, kept going. That first driver likely faces little more than a traffic ticket. Jimenez's friends and family left court knowing the teen now faces prison time. Reed's friends face a fate even worse.
It's not going to be the same.
As for Connie Griffith,
You couldn't move him because of the way he was all twisted up.
she's left to wonder when the dash and dart will finally end.
They need some kind of traffic control so they can push a button and get across the street safe.
A lot of that going on today. It's certainly not just AmeriCorps over there. We're talking about the old Loretto Heights campus. There's a college campus there now, as well as additional schools. This is a busy area for sure. One more thing. As you know, we've launched the Just Stop campaign on 9 News and online. Because of that, we can readily tell you that there have been 7 other hit and runs involving injury since 2011 within a 5-block radius of where this happened on Saturday night. Kyle.
And Chris, appreciate the visual about the crosswalk situation. So often we'll hear with these cases, well, the pedestrian wasn't in the crosswalk. It's not always as simple as people might think.
And kids and people are using that area of the street without crosswalks night and day constantly.
Reed Huffman died on a notoriously dangerous stretch of Federal near the old Loretto Heights campus. Hit and killed Saturday night by a teenage driver police say was drunk. Statistics gathered for our Just Stop campaign show it is the 7th hit and run in that 6-block stretch in the last 3 years. Tonight, those who knew Huffman, who worked with him during his AmeriCorps service, tell our Maya Rodriguez he was a one-of-a-kind guy.
He came here to, as we like to say, to get things done.
Reed Huffman came to Denver full of all the ideas, energy, and exuberance befitting a 19-year-old who had his whole life ahead of him.
He was just a bright, shining star from the very beginning.
Through his service with AmeriCorps, Huffman worked with a 3rd grade class at Garden Place Academy in Denver, helping teachers and tutoring students.
A really friendly, outgoing young adult. I think one of the things for me that stands out about Reed is a commitment and dedication to service.
But it was in the city he came to serve where Huffman would pay the ultimate price. After being hit by 2 cars on Federal Boulevard Saturday night, the second driver kept going.
It makes you just wonder what kind of person is this that could do such a thing, to leave a human being lying there on the pavement like that and then taking off.
The first reaction for me, nausea. You know, just a feeling of, sick to my stomach with the realization of what was going on.
The past few days have been tough for those who worked closely with Huffman, a core group of young people here to serve, losing someone they had come to view as family.
Every day is, and every second is hard because you lose someone so quickly, especially someone like him. But we have hugs and lots of smiles, so it is very hard.
To honor his memory, they say they plan to work even harder in their service to Denver. They believe it's what Reed would have wanted, as they choose to remember him.
Would love him.
Maya Rodriguez, 9 News.
In a statement to 9 News, Reed's father said his son was so loved by his family and they're devastated by his death. He referenced their strong Christian faith and added that Reed was always a servant at heart who wanted to help people make a difference in their lives.
A month has passed since a 19-year-old AmeriCorps member was killed in a hit-and-run on a busy stretch of Federal near the old Loretto Heights campus. And back then, 9 Wants to Know investigator Chris Vanderveen documented the ongoing problem there with a camera. Well, today, Denver police spent the morning trying to convince people, whether on foot or behind the wheel, that the area does in fact remain dangerous. So, Chris went back to document the problem.
In a world of mean streets,
this is a very busy street.
Federal remains decidedly cruel. 10 pedestrians hit in a 1-mile stretch of road since January of last year.
2 of those were fatal, one an AmeriCorps participant.
Last month, Reed Huffman was simply doing what so many continue to do here.
And so people were wanting to cross.
Following that old adage about the shortest distance between 2 points.
He was just the best friggin' guy, man.
It was that straight line Denver police and Denver public schools had hoped to bend a little on this day.
And so if you got to walk a little bit further, take that extra time to ensure your safety. So this has become a very dangerous area, so we're trying to get the message out.
The message, pay attention, whether on the road.
And we need to slow down because it does mean lives.
Or on foot.
It's about changing their behavior.
Here, the crosswalks are separated by a half-mile. The temptation remains so strong that one man, in the middle of jaywalking enforcement, jaywalked right over to the police officer writing the jaywalking tickets.
That's ridiculous. Get a ticket, but being a grown man crossing the street.
He wasn't impressed.
$95 for crossing the street. You see that?
Yet once the police lights dimmed and the press event waned, a curious thing happened once more. The daily dash and dart was quickly renewed. We came back during the lunch hour. No officers, no cameras except for ours. Old habits, quite unlike simple jaywalking laws, are hard to break.
We have a lot of kids that have to get across the street.
And a mean street appears destined to become cruel once again. Chris Vanderveen, 9 News.
Stops your heart for just a moment. Part of the problem is that there are multiple agencies with a stake in all of this. CDOT maintains the road. Denver police enforce the traffic laws on it. And Denver Public Schools has 3 schools on what's now known as the Colorado Heights campus. We are told by all the agencies they want to do more to deal with the jaywalking issue that occurs there every day.
Elu Jimenez likely had no idea there was a warrant out for his arrest when he bumped into one of our investigative reporters inside the Denver courthouse today. The strange moment came shortly before a judge handed down a sentence on a hit-and-run case that left one teenager dead. 9 Wants to Know investigator Chris Vanderveen had that strange run. And Chris, eventually this all did go according to some sort of a plan?
It sure did. And let's start at the very beginning. This case involves one of the very first hit-and-run cases we covered under our Just Stop campaign. Back in March, a 19-year-old was killed near Federal in Dartmouth. We came to court today, along with the victim's family, expecting to see the teenage defendant sentenced. What we didn't expect was a bit of a hiccup. It happened on Federal, in a spot where countless other AmeriCorps members have crossed.
It's not going to be the same.
His name was Reed Huffman, a 19-year-old from North Carolina who joined AmeriCorps with that typical teenage idealism associated with wanting to change the world.
He was very excited when the envelope came and said that he'd been assigned to Denver.
His dad came to court Friday with the full expectation of watching a judge sentence this 19-year-old, Eliu Jimenez. This is file video of him. But there was one big problem. At 8:30 a.m., he was a no-show. An hour went by, and then another. Eventually, the judge inside issued a warrant for Jimenez's arrest. The teen on the docket was a wanted man. And then, a strange thing happened.
Are you Eliu? Yeah.
I saw him wandering outside the courtroom with his sister. He looked lost. I told him he needed to go inside. He did.
Better late than never in some regards.
Huffman's dad was there to see what happened next. The judge gave Eliu Jimenez 8 years in prison, but said he would consider probation after he served just 120 days. Reed's dad said he thought it was fair.
We hope that Mr. Jimenez can take this and decide that he wants to be someone who contributed like our son did.
2 19-year-olds, 2 different decisions in life. That fact was lost on no one here today.
So again, if Jimenez does what he's supposed to do during those 120 days in prison, he'll likely get probation in a few months. Think of it like a bit of a scared straight program. As for Reed's family, there's one more thing they'd like to see: a crosswalk in that section of Federal near Dartmouth. Another AmeriCorps member died there in October. Christine, it is a very bad section of road. They'd like to see some changes there.
And then suddenly I received a text message from one of my cousins inviting me over to his house.
It was just after midnight.
So I said to my kids, okay, we're going with your uncle.
Christmas morning.
And they start, no, we want to go home to open the presents, please, Dad.
So Javier Medina and his wife Dora, knowing just how special that moment is, decided to go home.
Okay, vamos a abrir esos.
So he said, okay, let's gonna do that. And then that's when I don't remember anything else. I just remember waking up and having my wife's head here in my shoulder.
It happened in an instant.
She just opened her eyes and was looking at him without talking nothing. I begged to her, please don't do this to me.
Denver police say 37-year-old Johnny Gilbert ran a red light at the intersection of 51st and Peoria, slamming into the Medina family. Dora was rushed to the hospital, where doctors said there was nothing more they could do for her.
I couldn't believe it, and I don't want to believe it. They let me saw her, I think, still with 2 minutes of life.
But the moments they shared with the woman they say was kind, strong, and loving.
I used to call her the general, very strict.
Will always remain.
I think she doesn't want us to be sad.
And together, for her, they'll be strong.
All I know is I need to be strong to carry on with this and take care of my children.
It has happened again, this time near Iliff and Race around 7 this morning. Denver police say they issued a Medina alert for this silver four-door sedan. They say the driver took off after hitting a man who was getting out of his car. The victim is recovering at a hospital. But today's hit and run comes just 1 year since a mother lost her 2 young boys in a similar way. 9 News reporter Megan Fitzgerald is following this story for us, and Megan, police are still looking for that driver.
And Eric, that grieving mother is still hopeful that they will find the driver who hit her and killed her 2 children right here in this intersection. That mother told us, with the help of a translator today, that this intersection is the reason why it's hard for her to step outside of her home.
She sat and cried at the time, all the time, when she looked at the photo.
There could never be a way to describe the pain of losing 2 young children. Zamaka was 8, his brother Azika just 6. They immigrated to this country from Burma, and like many other parents, Zamabi wanted to give her sons a better life.
She had a dream before for her children. She wanted to be, an educator for her children in America.
She had dreams, but they had dreams too.
The elder son said to her, his mom before, he wanted to be, when he grew up, he wanted to be a soldier in America.
It was what they wanted. But one snowy day in March, while crossing the street with her sons at 14th and Yosemite, just feet away from their home, that dream was snatched away. Denver police say someone driving a Cadillac Escalade slammed into Zama and her 2 boys and then sped off.
She doesn't want to eat.
Zama prefers to sit here now in silence. Going outside is too painful, and believing that her 2 sons are gone is unbearable. All there is left to do now, she says, is wait for police to find who killed her 2 innocent boys.
Me too, apologize. She wanted to get the police to find the person.
Denver police consider this still a very active and ongoing investigation. They're asking anybody who has information about this case or any other hit and run to contact their department right away.